All right, welcome to Halitics. It is the Friday free for all, and I'm so delighted to have my good friend Lisa Joe Finstrom with us this morning, at least for the first half hour. Good morning, Lisa Joe. Thank you so much for being part of Halitics today.
Hi, Al. Thanks for inviting me, and it's really great to see you as well.
Well, I always enjoy talking to you and working with you because I think we're very simpatico on a lot of issues, and it's hard to find folks who generally share the same values on many different issues. We tend to, it's kind of like a buffet. I agree with you here, but I disagree with there. So it's nice when we're generally on the same page. That goes for the environment, that goes for protecting sacred spaces for various groups of people. That's what you're here to discuss this morning, at least to start out with the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. Tell us about that, Lisa Joe.
Yes, well, first I'd like to just explain a little bit about the history of River Road. I've been in Bethesda for over 30 years, and until a couple years ago was completely unaware of the history of River Road. It basically, prior to 1808, there were major plantations, tobacco. The land got quickly depleted, and between about 1808 to 1860, they switched over to breeding plantations, which is really as horrific as it implies. So basically, just young girls just used to literally produce offspring to work and to be sold. In other parts of the state and the country. So what I want to do is explain a little bit about the history, but then I also want to emphasize that there's a lot of ways to find out about BACC. You can just Google Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. And then there's going to be two big events I'm very excited about. Monday, June 19th, Juneteenth, at the Macedonia Church on River Road, across the street from the church, 5124 River Road, is the site of Old Moses next to the McDonald's, and it's clearly visible for the street. So people are welcome to stop by, and that's going to be later in the afternoon. And parking will be tricky, though, as you can imagine. This Sunday, between 3 and 5, I'm hosting an educational fundraiser with lots of food, lots of music. I've gotten a lot of wonderful RSVPs already. Some folks from the political scene, as well as school teachers, activists, people from other allied groups. And also Bethesda African Cemetery, they've written 2 books on the subject I'm going to discuss. They've generated tremendous interest among teachers at MCPS. They've had 2 major exhibits at the Katzen Center at American University. They have 2 major law firms working tirelessly on this issue. They've gotten local, national press attention, including a recent long piece on MSNBC. So what is Bethesda African Cemetery
So,
Coalition?
so, so let me just jump in real quick, Lisa Joe, just for folks who aren't really familiar with our area. We're
Mhm.
outside, well, Bethesda, Maryland is north of Washington, D.C., and it's one of the larger cities in the state. River Road is a main artery that runs from the Beltway, which is a road that rings Washington, D.C. If you're not familiar with the area, the River Road runs actually from far outside the Beltway deep into Potomac, Maryland, which is a very affluent community, to the district line in a northwest to southeast direction, and then into the district. And what Lisa Joe is saying is that this area has a long and ignoble history, a really sinister history, where during slavery it was actually used to, where young girls were raped and used to generate or produce more children who would be enslaved from the moment of birth until death. So that is the region we're discussing. You are, by the way, watching Halitics. I would ask you, if you can, and you haven't yet done so, please click subscribe in the bottom right corner. And now back to my friend, activist Lisa Joe Finstrom.
So I'm trying to take a very complex issue and break it down. There are 2 sections of Moses. There's New Moses, which was a cemetery recognized in the modern era. So there are people alive today, a Mr. Harvey Matthews to be specific, who remember playing in the cemetery. The county has tried to ignore the existence of that cemetery, but now that evidence is overwhelming and even they're acknowledging it. But what happened is in the 50s and 60s, there was a vision for River Road that did not include a free Black community that resulted from the enslavement, right? These are the descendants of enslaved people. You got to make them disappear through trickery, through the Ku Klux Klan, myriad methods. And Mr. Harvey Matthews, does remember the Ku Klux Klan terrorizing his family to the point where they finally moved out. So presently, New Moses is owned by the HOC, who wants to sell the property to developers because it's worth a lot of money. In 2021, a circuit court judge, Carla Smith, recognized, no, this was a cemetery. You cannot just convey property where there's a known cemetery. Now, HOC, instead of saying, okay, we're going to stop the madness, is spending taxpayer dollars to fight the appeal. All right, so adjacent to the known cemetery, there's something called Old Moses. This would have been a dumping ground, literally, for enslaved people, and also, to the extent possible, a place where enslaved people would have tried to ceremoniously bury their relatives. So the two historically always are close to one another, which makes perfect sense. So the Old Moses is right behind the McDonald's today, where there's a big pit in the ground, where there's a like a $250 million project going on. So the county recognized, well, we need some cover here. We need to have an archaeology firm looking at this. The descendant community wanted Dr. Michael Blakey, whose name is on the African American History Museum, who's also associated with the New York burial memorial in New York City. And so he is kind of the world's foremost, one of the foremost experts on these historic burial grounds and the African diaspora. They said, no, we don't want him. They have a woman involved. One of the archaeologists is a woman named Dana Coleman, who wrote this atrocious book that I just read. She was a CSI in Baltimore. The book is kind of like trying to portray herself as kind of a CSI badass and just talking so disrespectfully about poor white communities, poor Black communities. She was actually called in on one case. There was a sewer line that broke, and they discovered bodies. So a similar kind of situation as Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. She illegally removed the remains to her home to clean them, and then returned them to the site so that the community could rebury them. But if you read in the book her description, just laughing, she knew it was illegal. She knew it was inappropriate. And like a final quote I have from her, if I can find it, maybe I can't, but she just talks about how she just was starting to lose all sympathy, all empathy for the crime victims and people that she was encountering at this point. So anyway, there's been a series of MPIAs, which are kind of local FOIA, where we've been investigating emails between county officials, the archaeology firm, Dana Coleman, and workers have found bone fragments using cell phone pictures. We have funerary objects. We were finding things in this big pit, right? Where they clearly, like you see an archaeology site where they're out there with those little trays shaking the soil. That's not how they were doing it.
So let me just jump in, because this is really fascinating stuff. We have a limited amount of time, and I'm learning a lot, Lisa Jo. I don't mean to be dismissive of this. Is really interesting, but the concern is that this very important site, both from a historical standpoint and archaeological, and also representing the souls of folks who were, persecuted in the worst possible way. The plan now is to just completely pave over this, correct, and turn it into a commercial site. You're trying to stop that.
Yes, that's what this group is absolutely trying to do. And we have two law firms working on it. A lot of laws were broken. There's something called a 106, Section 106, where you strongly suspect or there's evidence that it's a cemetery. You have to follow certain procedures. You have to engage the descendant community, and the descendant community has been just completely ignored and maligned, really, in the county. And there's some serious issues with Mark Elridge. There's MPIAs.
So he's the county executive, Mark Elridge, who is very progressive. In fact, he was identified as the second most powerful Democratic socialist in America by, I think, Jacobin magazine, yes. because he represents such a large county and he does identify as a Democratic socialist. There are concerns among some of the organizers that Mark hasn't taken every step possible to thwart the commercial development of this land. You're going to be having a fundraiser, correct, this Sunday. That's the day after tomorrow. We've got the address up there. You can click on the link in the description. Lisa Jo, what are you going to be? I assume you'll be presenting a more in-depth discussion than what we're having right now at your home.
Yes, there's going to be members of the descendant community. It's going to be a beautiful PowerPoint, but there's going to be music, there's going to be food, and really an opportunity to ask detailed questions because this is a complex issue. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the same old story. And that is, Black history, Black lives, Black property, Black burial grounds just do not have the same value as other people's do. So that's a big issue. It's a question of erasure, really.
Well, it's profits over people, and in this case, a group of people that have in the past and today are devalued. So that's exactly what we're talking about. And even when we talk about the situation yesterday in D.C. outside the White House, it's a similar situation. It's a situation we'll get to in just a moment, but I do want to give you a final word or two about the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. And I liked what you said, that there's kind of a group think. And I think you mentioned the woman who is now in charge of kind of the oversight as being someone who is dismissive of the concerns of all poor, struggling, and working people, regardless of their background, regardless of their race. And this is something we have to stop. We have to figure out how to bring people together to fight for what's just, as opposed to ignoring them or trying to separate them.
Yeah, because it's everybody's history. It's our history as well. It's American history. And, our children are also being deprived of this learning opportunity.
Anything else you wanted to share, Lisa Jo? Again, the link is in the description. I really want to give you every opportunity here. You taught me a lot. I did not realize how ugly. Slavery is always ugly. There's no way you can ever prettify it up. But the way you described the use of that land is particularly, I don't know what, obscene, the words fail, right? Sometimes people do things that are so bad you can't really, language fails.
Yeah, but it is criminal activity. You can't desecrate cemeteries. You can't ignore Section 106, which is this National Historic Preservation Act of 1960.
Right. No, I was referring to what was actually transpired on that land 160, 170 years ago. But that's true. It is violative of federal law. And are you optimistic? What's the sense now? Because so far, as I understand it, the coalition has not had great results.
I am actually pretty optimistic because this links into a whole national discussion about where are the descendants of enslaved people and their descendant communities, where are they buried? And when you add up all the numbers, they're missing in history. And that's because across the country, they've been paved over. It's not convenient. It's an inconvenient truth, to quote Al Gore. It's an inconvenient truth. And so Montgomery County is not an isolated case, and they're being very strategic. They're linked into all these other diaspora communities around the country that are working on the issue of missing African cemeteries.
Well, I really want to thank you so much for your activism and really doing good work, Lisa Jo. Good luck with that event. I wish I could be there. I have a wedding in New York, so I'll miss it. And I may be late, and I'll be late Monday too. Folks who are wanting to watch my video live on Monday, it will be delayed. I'm not sure when I'll start, but I'll have an announcement. Let's move on. Both of us were planning to be at this event. You can see the picture there, and I do want to absolutely platform my good friends at Climate Defiance, who have been shutting down various actions and activities that are pro fossil fuels. They were at the White House. Lisa Jo and I decided not to go because of the bad air. You can see it. It was code. There's maroon is the worst, but it was the one purple. So it was the second worst you can be in DC. And I understand there were more parts per million in the atmosphere around here that we breathe than ever before. This is a direct result of our burning fossil fuels, Lisa Jo.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what are you doing? Tell us about 350 MoCo. This was part of the Bill McKibben group, and he has moved on to the Rocking Chair Rebellion, Third Act, also known as. But you guys are continuing the flag, also flying the flag for 350 MoCo.
We had representatives down there. We had steering committee members down there, and we had called out our membership. And I haven't checked back in to see what the attendance was, but I think it was pretty good. But they did lose a few people. I got very, very nervous prior to setting out, but these issues, in a way, there's a certain fairness that this happened to Washington D.C. because this is where the most powerful nation in the world, and we're not standing up to the climate crisis the way we should be. So in a way, it is the air that we deserve. I hate to say that.
I made the exact same point yesterday, Lisa Jo. I noted that the most victims to date and those who have suffered the most as a result of the climate catastrophe are those who are least culpable, least responsible for it, poor people in the global south. The wildfires in Canada are a distinct change. Canada is a petro state. It's one of the major producers and exporters of fossil fuels. And obviously, so is the United States. So there is a poetic justice that we are also now suffering in ways that we had not previously. It is, and I forget the reverend who said it, but it's the chickens coming home to roost without question. We've got Lisa Jo for a few more minutes. I want to play this video from yesterday's event. I'm sorry. I wish I had been there. I wish she had been there so we could talk about it from firsthand knowledge. But I would note that we have great video of it, so that will, I hope, suffice. And if you're curious, you can go to my Facebook page, which is Hal Ginsberg, where I posted a link to this video. I also posted them in yesterday's live stream, knowing I might not be there. I posted these videos, the whole thing. But here we go. Here is from the Stop MVP rally. I just fear, Lisa Jo, before I play this clip, I don't know that there's I hate to be a complete Debbie Downer, but or Daryl Downer, but I don't know how we stop it. It's the law. Those MFers, those bastards passed this thing in Congress, and Biden signed it.
So there's over 750 communities and organizations that are trying to stand up to it. So I don't know. It just may come down to people in the field that just don't want their land or their community destroyed.
Well, it is true that civil disobedience can go an awful long way, and that is, I think, where we're headed, and that's where we were yesterday. So let's get this on.
Generations. I am here to stand with my son and sacrifice myself to give him a possibility of a future that those in Congress, Senate, and Joe Biden voted to deny. They are trying to deny our children a future by killing our water, by killing our sacred land, all for money.
All right, and let me get the second clip, but that's the bottom line right there. It is the bottom line. It's about money, and it is obscene. And we're killing our mother. We're stabbing our mother in the heart with our continued accelerating exploration, production, and consumption of fossil fuels.
We are a multiracial, multi-generational, multi-ethnic movement of people who are ready to see environmental and climate justice be a reality and not just a political football. We are the movement of people who have organized and galvanized against pipelines that have sought to take our land, destroy our drinking water, hurt our families and our communities. We are the movement. And there are those who use and abuse their power and their authority against us, against the people. People who they swear an oath to protect. People who they say the Constitution protects. And yet they make decision after decision that shows us they care much more about corporations' profits than people's lives. They may care a whole lot more about what stakeholders on Wall Street think than about the water that we drink. We've got people in position, from presidents to senators, who are making decisions that have horrible ramifications for our communities. And this movement is fighting back. This movement is pushing back because we know that there is a different way for us to be. There is a different reality for us to have. And we deserve it. We deserve it. We deserve it. Because this ain't Joe Manchin's country. This ain't Mountain Valley Pipeline's country. This is our country. This is our country. We build this, not MVP. We make this nation run. And it's about.
All right, I'll stop it there, but very, very powerful speech by Justin Pearson. I was sorry to miss that as well live. Lisa Jo, inarguable sentiments. Maybe just share a little bit personally what makes you tick, why you have become so active, and just for those who don't know, Lisa Jo's like at every event she can possibly be at, and she's a leader in the climate justice movement as well as obviously against the cemetery. So before we let you go, and I know you've got another event, maybe just a little bit of why this matters so much.
Well, I mean, just to get really basic, I mean, I have adult children. You worry about their future, their children's children. It's just a concern about, what kind of world that we're going to leave behind. You want to think things are going to be better for the next generation, and not just disastrous for no reason other than greed.
Do your kids, I was talking about this because I have the exact same feelings about my two adult children and wanting them to have a world that's at least as rich or not that much less rich than the one that I had to enjoy as a child. And obviously we're going in the wrong direction. I don't get from them, and maybe I'm wrong, the same sense of trepidation, the same sense of dread of the future that I have. I'm wondering if your children are feeling that, and you would think they would, right? Because it's their world.
Well, it's complicated because do you really want to scare the hell out of your kids, right? So yeah, they're very aware, they're very concerned, they have a lot of opinions. But they're also trying to, stay focused. One's a school teacher in Chicago, The other is working in a high-end salon in Chicago. And then I have a son here in Silver Spring working for a nonprofit. You don't want to pound them. You need to tell them, well, what do? You get involved. That's what you do. And you can't possibly know the end result. You just try to be a good person, get involved, do what you can. But then you also have to kind of live your life. You have to teach school. You have to cut someone's hair, and you have to do the books for a nonprofit. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and that's what I tell myself is I got to keep doing this live stream because, that's just not just hopefully making a difference, but because that's what people do. I mean, we have to exist. And I always think of, and I've used this before, but I think it's important metaphor. In the novel The Plague by Camus, the doctor's the hero, even though it's unclear that he makes any difference whatsoever or saves any lives. The plague is implacable and people either die or they don't. And yet he gets up every morning and goes his rounds and treats people and does the best he can. And that's the hero because he exists, because he continues his existence as best he can in the face of death and destruction, and perhaps having zero real impact. So that's sort of, I guess, my philosophy too, and sounds like yours.
Yeah, I always tell my kids, if you can move 1 grain of sand 1 inch in the right direction, that's an accomplishment, right? Just 1 grain of sand 1 inch.
I'll let you go. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure, as always, to see you, Lisa Jo Finstrom, with us on Halitics, and we hope to have her again soon. So Lisa Jo with us. We're going to get to just a couple more things. I do want to show the, and I told folks I really wanted to platform our good friends at Climate Defiance. So we're going to do that. Let me see if I can just get the right video right. Sometimes this is where I always get kind of messed up, is where I don't have myself, or I don't have the right, let's see just how this should be me, but I don't know what's going on with this. All right, so let's see if we can just do the zoom here. Come on, Hal, this is not good. There we go, there I am. All right, so we'll get to Jamie, because I do want to go after our friend Jamie Raskin in a little bit. Maybe he's not our friend. Maybe I'm wrong to call him our friend. But I do also want to, as I said, platform Climate Defiance. And we had the video, of course, from the event downtown. But now let's show where they're truly disrupting in a space where they're not supposed to be, where they're not wanted, where they're being pushed out. Here's Climate Defiance. Oh, and I'm not hearing that. So let's see if we can unmute them. Oh, that doesn't work either. Oh.
The meeting will resume momentarily.
You did not meet us. You talked to us for dignity. Why won't you talk to us?
All right, so this was on Tuesday, and it was an event where Manchin was talking about this pipeline that he's been promoting and he's making tons of money off of it. And so here, Climate Defiance, truly heroic, responding to Manchin. And I just don't think there's any way to view these folks except as true heroes. So let's get the rest of this video on if we can. I'm going to see if we can get, there we go, center it. And here we go.
A Mount Valley pipeline to go through the same mountains you've already let them blow up.
So that bully's trying to shove this woman out.
I'm Riley Hall. I'm from Parkersburg, West Virginia, and Manchin is a fucking coward. How did he win this? It's because he takes the most money from fossil fuel corporations.
He has received over $1 million just in the last year alone from fossil fuel interests. He's the #1 recipient of fossil fuel money in Congress.
23 days I hunger strike because we did everything we're supposed to. I knocked on thousands of doors. I talked to hundreds of West Virginians. I did everything I was supposed to.
And then they scared him off. He left. He just decided to leave. So this is what we have to do. And I say it with a little bit of embarrassment or shame because I wasn't there. I wasn't part of that. And I feel bad. I should have been. I wasn't. I'm going to really try, as I've said, to step up my protest game. I don't feel as bad, honestly, about missing the event yesterday at the White House because it wasn't as disruptive. It was kind of a planned protest. But when Climate Defiance goes out there and they take on these malefactors of great wealth who are literally killing us all, they are the heroes of our generation. They really are. They're the latter-day John Browns. They're the latter-day righteous Christians during the Holocaust. These are the heroes of our time, and there's no other way to spin it. They are fighting as best they can against the oncoming apocalypse. I thank them for it. I honor them. Okay, somebody who I don't honor, somebody who I think is just the opposite, somebody who I think has been acting in the worst possible way, dividing us, making things worse, is this man. And I find it so frustrating. I almost kind of want to have, well, I know she's not a supporter, but I do want to have this discussion with my fellow self-described progressives in Montgomery County, how they can believe that this man is on their side, that this man is a progressive. It just isn't the case. Here is Raskin speaking at, member of the Progressive Caucus, speaking at the True Con, hosted by, paid for by, sponsored by Lockheed Martin, a multi-billion-dollar weapons manufacturer. And Raskin is not there to speak truth to power. Raskin is not there to call out the profiteers, the ghouls. He's there to tell them how great they are. And we cannot continue this on the left. We cannot allow people who just blatantly lie, misrepresent. Ukraine must win in its struggle for freedom and democracy. This is not a struggle for freedom and democracy. This is a struggle for markets, for market share, for control. This is a struggle where the neo-Nazis are on our side. This is a struggle where there are no good people. This is a struggle, except for the dead, except for the hundreds of thousands of dead. That's who this struggle involves. And Jamie Raskin is not on our side. He is not on your side. He is on the side of the ghouls. He is not fighting for us. This has to stop. We cannot continue to give aid and cover to these kinds of people.
To act in politics is, by definition, to take responsibility not only for advancing your ideals, but also for trying to confront in different ways the many threads of injustice and cruelty that make up the fabric of our world.
All right, I want to stop that because he's spot on. That is what politics should be. He says to act in politics is to take on, and I know this, you can maybe make out, I did put a closed caption on too. This is from the True Con, if you want to look it up, the whole thing, but it's 4 hours plus, so I just took out parts of it. It should be. It's not what acting in politics generally is. To act in politics is so often to carry water for the rich and powerful, the affluent, to sell down the river, poor, struggling, working people, the people of East Palestine, the people of East Baltimore, the people who are buried under the Macedonia Church in Bethesda, the people in the way of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Those are the people who are consistently betrayed by those who act politically, including Jamie Raskin, who voted for the dirty debt ceiling deal, who supported the dirty debt ceiling deal. And here he is flacking for the war on the people of Ukraine and the war on the people of Eastern Europe. Here is your District 8 Congress member, maybe running for U.S. Senate. We've got to do better. How could we do worse? Somebody who is consistently divisive, a hyper-partisan hack.
And I'll give you an example of this. I'm a member of Congress who's been an ardent champion of the people of Ukraine in their extraordinary struggle to...
I hope you can hear that. He's saying, I'm an ardent champion of the people of Ukraine in their struggle. I'm going to see if I can get that just a little bit louder, folks, because I get the audio's a little bit soft. So I'm going to see if I can put a little gain on that because, because you're not hearing it. So give me a moment if you can, because I can't even it's so unbelievably troubling that this is what this is who passes. This is what passes for progressive in American politics today. I hope this is, now I'm afraid it's going to be too loud. We'll see if we can. So let me just do this one more time. Let me start this thing one more time. This was what passes for progressive in American politics today.
To act in politics is by definition to take responsibility not only for advancing your ideals, but also for trying to confront in different ways the many threads of injustice and cruelty that make up the fabric of our world. And I'll give you an example.
All right, and I agree. That is what it should be. That is what politics should be, taking on the injustice and cruelty that make up the fabric of our world. He's right.
Example of this, I'm a member of Congress who's been an ardent champion of the people of Ukraine in their extraordinary struggle to defend their national sovereignty and their democracy against the lawless and bloody imperial aggression of Vladimir Putin.
All right, so this is a closed conference, but you hear the applause because the people who are there are the arms makers and the shareholders and the warmongers who support unlimited, endless supplies of hardware to Ukraine so that they can fight to the last Ukrainian, until the entire country looks like Bakhmut, until every dam has been blown up. And I remind you, we don't know who blew up that dam until every pipeline that comes out of Russia is blown up, like the Nord Stream pipeline, which Ukraine or the US blew up, and we now know that. And which was, by the way, an absolute natural ecocidal disaster, with all that methane going right into the atmosphere. And you can see that smirk on Jamie Raskin's face. He knows he's full of crap. He knows he's BSing. But you know what? He's getting that applause. He's getting those checks written for him. I guess that's good enough for him.
And I believe that the democratic nations and movements of the world and everyone supporting freedom and human rights and the rule of law have a deep interest in repelling and ending Russia's atrocity-filled aggression.
So if you're concerned about those atrocities, why aren't you pushing hard for a ceasefire? Why aren't you pushing hard to keep NATO out of Eastern Europe so we don't have more wars? Why aren't you pushing hard to stop the supply of hardware to Ukraine so they have to, and we have to, get involved in suing for peace and ending this? Contrast. I get it. All of you are going to be aghast that I will say this. But contrast this with what Trump said. And we'll play that because Trump is, on this issue, far more humane, far more decent than this warmonger.
Against the Ukrainian people. Ukraine must win in its struggle for freedom and democracy today. We are all invested in that. And
we're not. I mean, it's ridiculous for him to say that. I mean, I want people to be free. I absolutely do. And yes, is Ukraine probably a little less unfree than Russia? Yes. In general, yes. But there are ways to protect their sovereignty that are so much better than what we're doing right now. But they're not going to make as much money for the people who are sponsoring the conference where Jamie Raskin is speaking.
Strongly advocated and voted for every form of assistance to Ukraine, economic, financial, military, security, strategic, humanitarian, diplomatic, and most of it has been in the form of military and security.
All right, so I've voted for every form of aid, most of it in the form of military aid. That's your progressive. That is your progressive. Unbelievable. And I think what frustrates me and angers me even more than Raskin are the progressives who support him, who get angry at me for criticizing him, who feel this is wrong. Well, he's our ally. We got to support him. Nothing frustrates me more than those who are simply unwilling to just say, no, this guy I was wrong to support him. Or not even that. I don't say you were necessarily wrong. I voted for Raskin in the past. But say, okay, now we know what he's about. Now we know who he is. We got to move on. We've got to find something better. And we can do that. We can. But we have to be willing to. We have to be willing to call this out. And I don't get why it's so hard. Is it just you thought he was on your team? Is that it? You thought he was on your team. So because we thought he was on our team, we can't bear the thought that maybe he's not. Well, look, I've been wrong a million times. I accept that. I was wrong about Obama in a lot of ways. I was wrong about Bernie in certain ways, not as wrong. Wrong about AOC. I thought she was great 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So we get things wrong. Let's admit it. Let's move on. Let's find something better. Because this is not going to do it. This is going in the wrong direction, folks.
Assistance, billions of dollars to fight a just and defensive war against Putin's bloody attack on the people of Ukraine. And yet, the fact that I'm a passionate champion for President
All right, so he's going to go on and talk about wars he's opposed. And I'm going to play part of it because I think it's important that we hear it. But this glossing over the complexities of Ukraine, this glossing over our complicity, this glossing over our utter failure to try to stop the killing and, in fact, to foment ever more bloodshed is egregious. And again, words fail. Words fail.
Zelensky and Ukraine's side in Putin's war does not mean that I favor the unjust wars that we have fought and initiated, like the war in Iraq, which was built on lies. It caused hundreds of thousands of casualties. It cost the American people more than $1 trillion. And it expanded the power of the tyrannical theocrats of Iran, not just in Iraq, but throughout the region.
All right, so I give him credit, I guess, for saying that, but it's such a layup. It's such low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to simply say, oh, yeah, even though I support this really, really, really bad war, I'm not always wrong. I'm not always on the wrong side. And here are times when I was correct, when I actually did the right thing, when I fought against, or at least I voted against. He never really, Raskin kind of presents himself as this kind of pro-peace, anti-Pentagon, big budget guy. And he has voted against some of the bloated budgets, but only when it hasn't made a difference, only when the budgets were going to pass by huge margins anyway. And he's never been an outspoken opponent of the military-industrial complex. He's never taken it on. So he has his cake and eats it too. He presents in a certain fashion as somewhat of a pro-peace guy, but he takes the money, he takes the accolades of the mic, and then he goes and speaks in favor of and votes in favor of billions of dollars that are only causing more death and destruction throughout the world. And in this case, in specific, in Ukraine, Russia. Now, I wanted to, again, contrast because, and this, I said I lost a subscriber. I lost one. I was very disappointed. Make it up. If you're not a subscriber now, please click like, please click subscribe, bottom right. But if I'm willing to risk it, I think I lose subscribers whenever I don't bash Trump. And by the way, Trump was indicted. Oh, did I have it? I hope I have that indictment because see, sometimes I do these fly decks. It's kind of weird. Did I miss it? Because I know Trump was indicted, and I want to talk. I think this indictment could really stick too. There was a good article in Politico about how about breaking down what are the likely charges, and I think it looks bad, and I don't think it's true. I think it's a legitimate prosecution. I don't see this as just, it may well be politically motivated, but okay, it's okay to charge someone with political motivations if they're legitimate charges, and if you're not, it's not selective. So if Trump is doing what every other president for the past 25 years has done, I don't think he should be prosecuted, and that's always been overlooked, and no one's gone after anyone for doing it. I wouldn't think it's right to charge. But that's not the case here. In this situation, I'm not aware. And I know some folks will say, well, what about Hillary? She had that homebrewed server where she kept her materials. There was lots and lots of classified documents on them, and nobody charged her. And my response is, it's not quite the same. I don't think, and it was bad, right? It was really bad what Hillary did. I'm not excusing it in any way. Well, I'm going to make this excuse for her. I don't think she really knew what she was doing. I think she's ignorant of computers. I think part, not all. I think she's an extremely secretive person, doesn't want anyone to know what she's doing. But I think part of her wanting to keep some different email address was because she didn't really understand. She doesn't really understand email, at least not very well. Not that I do particularly. But I don't, it's not my understanding that Clinton, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, you can disabuse me of my notions, that she was like deliberately hiding documents. She was trying to keep materials from future presidents or from future vice presidents. She wasn't really doing that. And it sure seems like Trump was. Trump was actually actively thwarting the recovery by the Justice Department or by whoever, the archives. He was legitimately thwarting their recovery. A better example might be, a better comp might be Sandy Berger. I think was the National Security Advisor under Obama. At one point went into the archives and just took documents out. And I don't think they charged him. And that was pretty bad. They probably should have charged him for that. But I don't think the fact that one lower level and still high level official got away with it without being criminally charged excuses Trump. It's not like there was a precedent set by Sandy Berger that now everyone gets to do this and we're only going after Trump. It looks really bad. Trump was requested numerous times, as we understand it, from the archives and from Treasury Department, whoever else, give us those documents. And he didn't. And so, yeah, charge him. Good. He deserves it. He should. Now, this to me is very different from Stormy Daniels, where she was a consensual lover. He paid her money. I don't care about that stuff. To make that a campaign finance violation, it seems like a hell of a stretch. And if it was, then fine him, have the federal government charge him. He's being charged under state law. That seems like a major stretch to me. I think it is a problem, and maybe he should be charged under the campaign finance laws. But the way the state of New York is doing it, it sure looks very sketchy. And I think the other problem is if you charge him under the campaign finance laws, what do you do with Hillary? In that case, where she did give all that money to that law firm to create the Steele dossier, and she didn't declare it as a campaign expenditure. So to me, this is the pretty decent case as far as I can tell, and I'll do more on it. So yeah, so Trump, yeah, he's got some problems. Shouldn't have hidden those documents. Shouldn't have taken them home with you. That was wrong. And if you get convicted or criminally, you have to plea out, too bad. You did the wrong thing. You should be punished for it. But I want to just contrast, and it's bad. There's no excuses. None. But I do, again, just want to contrast with Raskin. Because when it comes to I wonder why this is such a weird, man. I'm having issues with my my video here, my setup, which is very irritating to say the least. And I know you love hearing about it too. Well, we'll get there, folks. It's the rehearsal's going well. As the old ball coach would say. So remember, Raskin, we've got to win this war. I don't care how many billions of expenses. By the way, this is how Democrats lose elections. Americans are far more savvy, far more understanding of what a disaster this war is than Jamie Raskin gives us credit, and that the Democratic Party gives us credit. We're against it. We don't want to be there. And this is why, if you really are that afraid of him, if you think he's that bad, then don't keep green lighting endless war, billions and billions of dollars flushed down the toilet, so that all that happens is more people die.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. Now,
can I just follow up on that? You said you don't think in terms of winning and losing. Mr. President, can I just follow up on that because that's a really important statement
let me
that you
just
just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying, Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. You need the power of the presidency to do it.
But you won't say that you want Ukraine to win.
You know what?
All right, that was a very, what are you going to say? He got it. He nailed it. Trump was right. Trump is right on that. And also, this isn't like a little thing. This is a huge thing. I don't want to end the program with Trump because there's so many issues about him. And yeah, he should be prosecuted, I believe, for the document sequestration. But let's go from the ridiculous, who happened to get it 100% right, to the sublime. And this is my guy right now. I'm not saying I'm always going to be for him. I don't know everything about his campaign. I'm not thrilled with his party, but right now, I don't see how we don't vote for him.
In these bleak times, I have decided to run for truth and justice, which takes the form of running for President of the United States as a candidate for the People's Party.
All right, tell the truth about Wall Street, Ukraine, climate crisis, and more. So on every issue, he's right. We have got to side. And I have a problem. Like I said, I'm not thrilled with the People's Party. But Cornel West gets it. Trump gets the war on Ukraine, precious little else. Guess he gets tariffs when he wants to. And he's wrong, terribly wrong and narcissistic on a lot of issues. Biden, clearly not anywhere close to good enough. RFK Jr., not into the crypto. I can live with the vaccines if I was on board with all his other issues. I'm not. Marianne Williamson, she supports the war in Ukraine. No experience in politics. She's a, what do they call it, self-help guru. I have no respect for that. Dr. West is my guy. Have a great weekend. I'll be back late Monday if you want to watch me live. Otherwise, just go to the website. Just go to @Halitics on YouTube and you'll get all the Hal. Your Hal Jones will be more than satisfied. That's sort of weird. You should be hearing that. I don't know why we're not hearing. Huh. So strange.